what happened, but my search would always lead me back to this spot. 2. Like most parents at the time, my father and mother, Gilbert and Lorraine, didn't worry about John riding off into the woods alone. They were raising their children, John and me and our 13-year-old brother Andy, in a different age and a different spirit than the one in which I'm now raising my own. It was the early 70s. The age of Aquarius had given way to the free-to-be you and me generation. We were unbuckled and unrestrained, free from seatbelts or helmets or meticulously organized play dates. Our parents let us climb over the seats of our smoke-filled station wagon, puffing on candy cigarettes, and on road trips sleeping way in the back. When we had a stretch of hours to play, they let us put the free time, wandering off to learn and explore and find adventures. They shared our innocence. They hadn't learned to be afraid. My dad had been fending for himself since his early days in the Bronx. He grew up poor with his mother, Sarah, and older sister, Esther, after his father, Abraham, died of malaria when he was 9. But my dad, who was born 2.5 months premature in 1933, and narrowly missed being smashed by a falling tree branch one day in his stroller, was a scrappy survivor. Weaned on stickball and Woody Guthrie, he was exacting but sensitive, musical and argumentative, a tall, bearded intellectual in black-rimmed glasses. He prided himself on being a tough New York Jew, born in the Bronx but raised for a time in Palestine, where his father worked as a contractor and his cousin was the second prime minister of Israel, Moshe Sharet. Dad played folk songs in Greenwich Village and, skipping a grade, studied his way up the ranks of 2 of the city's most competitive schools, the Bronx High School of Science and City College of New York. It was at CCNY where he discovered anthropology, a burgeoning social science that was not just a career but also, as he often told me, a way of looking at the world, participating and observing. Perhaps it had something to do with how displaced he felt after his father suddenly died at sea. My dad told me he had no memories of his life before the year his father died. The traumatic loss had somehow erased his data. Anthropology allowed him to explore a fundamental question of his life: how the culture of a people, particularly oppressed peoples, survives. One night in 1958 at a party while completing his master's in anthropology at the University of Arizona, a young woman asked him for a light and he decided he couldn't survive without her. Her name was Lorraine, a raven-haired Minneapolitan with movie star looks who was passing through on her way to California. Rainey, as she was known by family and friends, was the youngest of 3 children of a successful attorney, Sam, and a homemaker, Anne. She'd become enamored of jazz music and, while working at a jazz record distribution company, befriended many artists and musicians, including pianist Dave Brubeck, who dedicated his song Sweet Lorraine to her when he was playing in town. This world of music and adventure appealed to her more than the provincial life at the University of Minnesota, and so, at the age of 19, she left for California, where a friend and a new future awaited. The wonderful thing about chasing freedom, whether on a bus to California or a bike through the woods, is that you never know what you will find. What my mother found, during a stop in Tucson to stay with her brother's family, was my dad. Meeting him at the party, he seemed exotic yet familiar, a New York intellectual who knew both Union songs and the best place in town for bagels. Now that he was in the Southwest, my dad had taken to faded jeans and turquoise belt buckles, the folk songs of Mexican singer Miguel Aceves Mejia, and looked like a beatnik cowboy. They fell hard, and quickly, harmonizing together as my dad strummed Pete Seeger songs on his nylon-stringed guitar. He confessed that a mutual friend had told him that if he ever met Rainey from Minneapolis, they would get married. Just a week after meeting, he got down on one knee and proposed. Together they sang folk songs in living-room hootenannies, and after moving to Chapel Hill, North Carolina, where my dad was in graduate school, joined early civil rights sit-ins. Freedom and revolution were in the air, and Dad cut a single of the mountain ballad Old Joe Clark with a buddy under the name Mike and Gil from Chapel Hill. In 1960, while pregnant with her first child, my mother turned her activism to women's rights.